Um, we've got a new piece of equipment that we're experimenting with this evening. So we have also members coming in remotely, and we have a device up here that can pick up most of the people in the room. So be careful what you say. I would ask that if you do speak, please give your name and speak clearly towards this our white device on the table. If you could ensure that your telephones are set to quiet, so we're not interrupted. There isn't a fire plan for this evening, unless somebody starts one. If there is a fire alarm, out through the door into the car park. I'll probably be there before you. First of all, this evening I'd like to congratulate Sheppey Masters and the Sheppey Sea Cadets, both of whom have been granted the Queen's Award for volunteering in the last week. So congratulations to them. It's unusual for Sheppey to get awards like that. And to get two at the same time is even more unusual. We have this evening in attendance at the meeting Emma Wiggins, the Director of Regeneration of Neighbourhoods, the Head of Regeneration and Economic Development, Joanne Johnson, Active Travel Coordinator, Adrian Oliver, and Democratic Services, Jen Clark. We also have the two county councillors for Sheppey, Andy Booth and Cameron Beard. And we have Matt Druitt from GT3 Architects, who's dealing with the levelling up presentation. Do we have nominated representatives from the local council, parish council?
Yes.
Thank you. Place down to
East Church.
East Church.
Can I just
Sorry,
make a
please.
note of people's names, please, just so I know who's here.
Malcolm Newell. Malcolm Newell.
Thank you. Who else have we got?
Ashley Shield, Queenstown Council.
And Brian Sport, Junior Town Council.
Chris Reed, Sheerness Town Council,
Thank you.
and we've also got Charlie
Charlie Buckingham, Sheerness Town Council. Ben Pointing, Mr. Parish Council.
Sorry, Ben.
Pointing.
Pointing. Thank you very much. Oh, and Linda. Linda, can you hear us? Yes.
Do we have anybody from Laysdown? No?
No one from Morgan.
No one from Laysdown. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies from councillors Pugh, Eakin and Darby.
Councillor Simon now sends his apologies to you.
Thank you very much.
And also Councillor Mundy.
Sorry, say that again?
Councillor Mundy from Mr. Parish Council.
Okay, item 3, do we have any declarations of interest on any of the items proceeding? Thank you very much. We then move on to the minutes of previous meetings. The minutes of the 15th of March. So we go to see the copy. Are you happy that's a true record?
Very good.
Thank you very much. There was also a very short minute from the 18th of May.
Yes, they've just been published today. Do members note the resolution that councillors Ingleton and Britt be chairman and vice chairman for the municipal year 2022 to 2023 as per minute numbers 28 and 29 for the meeting held directly after annual council on the 18th of May.
Thank you very much. We move on now to item 5, which is the Levelling Up Fund.
Thank you very much. I'm Gemma Johnson, in the Declaration of Development at Scarborough Council. As the chair mentioned, we're joined tonight by Matt Druitt from GT3 Architects, and I'll hand over to him to talk you through the proposals in just a moment. By words of introduction, I'd like to thank everybody again for their comments and their support as we've been working up the Levelling Up Fund's proposals. Matching ambition and budget is always going to be tough, but particularly so with very unusual circumstances that we're experiencing now with inflation. And the proposals that we're going to present still need some refinement to bring them within the government's £20 million envelope. We are in sight of that sum, so we're looking at refinement. We're not looking at taking chunks out of doing anything drastic. The application deadline has been confirmed by government as the 6th of July. I know when I spoke to you before, it was due to be at some point in the spring. It's tipped over slightly into the summer. So that's given us time to make those requirements. We still have a month to go before the bid has to be in. We've got 4 parts to the project, as I mentioned to you when I came previously. So in terms of Master's House, we intend, if we're successful, to use the Levelling Up Fund investment to restore the 2 remaining workshop units to the rear of Master's House, and that will complement the woody funding restoration activity in the main house. In terms of Sheppey College, we are still committed to expanding the college. Preferred option is for a junior college to accommodate 14 to 16-year-olds, and for an expanded curriculum to contain creative and cultural industries and engineering. EKC Group, who run Sheppey College, may need to review the full expanded curriculum they hope to offer, depending on the footprint that the Levelling Up Fund budget can accommodate. But the junior college and increased equity provision are a concrete part of any plan they have there. And I'm going to go over to that now to talk us through the proposed placement and beach route projects. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that everybody on Teams can see me. So hopefully everyone watching via Teams can see me. Thank you very much for welcoming me to Sheppey today. My name is Matt from GT3 Architects. We're a multidisciplinary practice based in Nottingham, and we specialise in leisure. Briefly, just going to touch on what we're planning on including in the bid. So we've broken the project down into 2 phases. In phase 1, we're looking at the existing dry side centre on the Beachfield site, and we're looking to retrofit, extend and improve the existing building. We're also looking to improve the ground floor by moving the GP facilities down to ground to make them more accessible. We're also looking at bringing new leisure offerings into the building, a new dedicated cafe on ground floor that's accessible for all. There'll be enhanced health and fitness offerings and, of course, some targeted architectural upgrades to the fabric of the existing building. And then more widely looking at the public realm around the Beachfield site. So we're looking to obviously improve the connections between the train station to the centre, the high street to the centre, but also to focus our efforts on creating a sense of place at the Beachfield site. And then briefly just to touch on what we can't achieve in phase 1 and what phase 2 might actually look like. So It's important to stress that phase 2 will require a separate funding source. So it's not a target of this levelling up funding bid. But the aim is to provide new and improved services within the existing building. So it'll be an extension that looks to provide a wet side and improve the existing facilities that are currently on site. As you'll know, if you're familiar with the building, I'm sure you all are, there are a lot of challenges in retrofitting an existing building. The building itself has undergone a number of extensions in its lifetime, so we're working within that existing fabric. But what we hope to do is to target our efforts on a number of key factors. So an improved sense of arrival, how one arrives to use the GP surgery, use the cafe, use the leisure facilities within the building. And also improving the sense of flow through the building. So how one navigates their way to the GP, to the cafe, and is able to obviously use all of the leisure elements within the building. And then, of course, improving the indoor leisure offer for Sheppey. So following the outcomes of the public consultation, just wanted to talk to you all about how we've responded to the outcomes of that. And I think the critical one of them all is obviously creating a destination, not just for users of the leisure centre, but more widely. So how do we actually tap into the fantastic fabric around the building and the site more widely, the Beachfield site? One of the ways we're looking to do that is the inclusion of a cafe, as I said before, on ground floor, that's accessible for everyone to enjoy and access and meet. And then also the inclusion of a number of offerings for children of all ages, one being soft play. So soft play, for those who are not familiar, is essentially a padded play area for children. We've also looked at including Tag Active, which is an assault course-based arena-style game within the building. Some images, I'm just going to lean back so you guys on the right-hand side here can see of what that looks and feels like. These are some example images. And then obviously the inclusion of Adventure Golf. So that will provide a beacon or a magnet to the site to draw further people in. As I said before, expanding those GP facilities and bringing those down to ground floor, so improving their accessibility. And then that focus on placemaking. And one of the things we're really keen to do is to create a gateway from the station to the site. And how we're looking to do that is obviously the sense of arrival one gets from the station and as they navigate through towards the main leisure site. And we really want to tap into the history of Sheppey. So it'll be classic seaside, but with a twist, to inform those public realm works. And then onto the actual site itself. So this is the Beachfield site we've been focusing on. As you know, we've broken the site down into 4 key zones. The first zone being the one from the station to the leisure site. The second zone is the one with the sandpit and the car park in. Zone 3, which is the main zone, is the leisure site zone. So that has obviously currently the dry side facility, and then zone 4, which has the existing wet side facility. And in terms of the loft bid, so for phase 1, we're focusing our efforts on zone 1 and zone 3. So that'll include the gateway and the upgraded public realm from the train station to the leisure site. And it will also include the phase 1 works to the existing dry side building. I should also mention that in zone 2, there are rather plans for a toilet block to be constructed next to the sandpit. In zone 1, just to focus in on that a little bit more, as I said before, the enhanced public realm from the station, but also to reinstate a sense of civic pride. You'll note the works to the War Memorial, which have recently been completed. So we're looking to continue that theme through to the main site and improve the connectivity. And then in zone 3, just to reiterate all of the things we're looking to achieve. So the improved GP offering, the destination cafe, the inclusion of tag active, soccer play, improved leisure within the building, and of course the adventure golf, and then the upgraded external facilities, which will also include an outdoor gym. And then I'm just going to finish and pause on this very high level indicative image, which is taken from Sheerness-on-Sea train station looking towards the Beachfield site. So that's a very indicative overview of the look and feel of what we might be going for. Thank you very much for listening. Cheers.
Thank you. Yes,
Councillor Tatton, Sheppey East. You're talking about the way from the railway station. There's only one other railway station on the island, the highway. Oh no, sorry, there was another one. You're expecting people to commute to this facility, and how do the people that live in outer fields, Blaisdell, all the way through, get to this facility? There's no railways out there anymore. You've made no mention of a bus turning point, a bus lighting point. You've just gone railway. And it's just for the people in Sheppey rather than for the people, people in Sheerness rather than for the people on Sheppey. So what about all these little accommodations?
Shall I answer that one?
You can do, Joanne, yeah.
What are the parameters that government set for funding that we can only spend it on capital infrastructure, so on physical things? I know there's a lot of interest in bus services, a lot of questions around how we get to these new facilities. We can't use enough funds for that kind of intervention. It doesn't mean it's not important, and we haven't noted that that's a real aspiration, but we can't use enough funds for that.
Right, but you're dependent on people going there. People at the island, all of the island, would more than likely like to go there, rather than a few people that got to change at City Mall still to get on the train to come out to the island. You're going, oh, the railway. It's only 2-carriage service, 3-carriage ain't nothing.
And I suppose it's as much about that sense of arrival when you're coming in, when you're back.
That's if you've got on the train in the first place.
There is a bus. No, there is already the bus facilities along there, but at the moment, KCFC is bus services, so I'm afraid that's not one within our remit and control, but it's obviously one that we need to have a dialogue.
I'm not knocking this gentleman, what the gentleman's trying to do, but is there any point in going down this route if the facilities cannot be used or is not accessible by the people, if you like, from, let's go, halfway possibly, right, but certainly when you get out to East Church, Walden, Bayview, Blaisdell, right, a lot of people there.
I think you've made the point.
Thank you.
Well, can I? Yeah. I'll say exactly the same as this gentleman saying. We've lost bus services. For me to get a bus to go to there, there's no way I could do it.
Bill's already made that point.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
one of the things that needs looking at really is the actual services to get you to the point.
Somebody wants it back.
Yeah, what they were saying, I live in Minster, I'm a car driver, so that's not too bad for me. But the roads on the island to get to that place, regardless of what the funding's for, our roads are terrible for people to travel down to that MS.
Yeah.
You know, you want people to go there, maybe make it so that the car doesn't sort of go down the potholes and every other road that bounces you about the road, the island to get to the nice facility.
Thank you, Chair. I think we do need to address the elephant in the room. The swimming pool was left out of the bid, which is really sad, actually, that such a major part of Sheerness infrastructure that is actually open. One thing that is open for everybody to use. Yes, the sea was on everywhere. That swimming pool caters from 0 to death, which is fantastic. And it's just been left out with no extra plan as to how Swell are going to solve that problem. So I'd really like to see a commitment that that is brought back at some point so that we can look at proper funding for that project as well. Because very little of this levelling up bid was for children, actually, and the swimming pool was something I was looking forward to, that they are going to get input in a major part of their future through that swimming aid, if that makes sense. And also, I'd be quite interested to know, is it just Swells working on this bid, or did we have consultancy working on this bid?
We pay a huge amount of consultants, it's always there.
And that's my issue, is that actually, I don't mind things being laid out of the bid, if it's really, that's what's got to happen. But I think Swell's got to be fairly transparent in what they spend on consultancy fees, what they're spending on which part of the project, so that people can really see that the levelling up funding is really being spent on the areas that we want it to be spent on, not consultancy fees, because that's a big concern agenda for the island. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, question.
Thank you. I think I fully agree that we share this point that the forms that to be left out. We did another crunching, we looked at all the things that we'd like to achieve, and it was way outside of the £20 million that the government has on offer. It is there as a phase two, and we are very keen to deliver phase two as soon as possible after phase one. So once this is clean, we then start to turn attention to how we can deliver that. And the extension has been designed to have the dry side, if you like, dry conditions. That would then lead on to the wet side extension. So it is there in the plans that are being drawn up. We're not fully kind of picking it to one side. It's just that it has to be posted because of budgetary envelope. And yes, we have used consultants to support us. Matt and his team are nice consultants that helped us, you know, to work through things like what the best look like, how we can accommodate the need and demand.
Those costs be made public so that we can see what's being spent on what projects.
So yeah, we get an additional, we get the total amount that we get as a capacity building fund. I think we elaborated on that at the first meeting. It's not a huge amount, and it has enabled us to secure the expertise of people, because we do not have that in-house, nor do we have the resource to do that in-house. So whilst Joanne and Kieran and Martin particularly have worked extremely hard on this over the last couple of months, we wouldn't be able to do that alone. And these guys have got experience of other bids in the first round that were successful, and the funding is there specifically to help us to do that.
That's a useful time.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute, we've got one coming in from outside, Linda Brinkworth.
Linda, did you want to ask the question yourself if you want mute?
I actually asked some other questions. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
About this particular,
Yes, about the presentation.
right, where do the cyclists now go, to the seafront?
Would you like me to jump in? Yeah. Hi, Linda. Matthew here. The image you're seeing on screen at this stage is very high level, so it's not to be read into as final by any means. Can you hear me?
Linda, can you hear? Don't know if it's Linda's connection. Billy, can you still hear us at the meeting?
Yeah.
Hi, Janet. Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, it might just be Linda's connection then.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just saying, if you want to carry on, I can report back to Linda after the meeting to give her the answer to her question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to?
Hold on, did you want to finish?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just to answer that. So at this stage, we're very early, and the image there is more of a very high level, as I say, image to show the art of the possible. But you know, were this to go ahead, we'd have a detailed consultation process with yourselves to understand what you want to see on the site. This is a very indicative version of life, so it would undoubtedly change and develop as the process goes on.
So Linda's follow-on question will be, I'm assuming that active travel is very much part of how this is going to proceed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
making sure, thank you.
Good
Yeah, I was very pleased to hear about the GP surgery going downstairs because I had sent in a suggestion that that should happen. But my other suggestion, based on the previous consultation meeting, when loads of people were saying what we want is more connectivity between the town and the beach. And my idea was to put the cafe upstairs and maybe put a veranda in, which overlooks the sea, so people at the cafe get the full benefit of the sea views, which they wouldn't get downstairs. And there's a lovely lift. You can't go up and down the lift.
Yes, yeah, no. I think, again, at this stage, the very indicative high-level ideas we've had are just ideas, and they would develop as time goes on and as the process goes on. So I wouldn't say anything's in or out at this stage in terms of that. All things we can look to explore in the future. But I think the reality is, you know, we are working within tight confines budget-wise, and also that the building is at a level with the seawall. So there's also that challenge, architecturally speaking, in terms of how we would negate that issue. But all things to be explored if the process were to go on.
Yeah, Pete MacDonald, councillor. One or two things actually. One is the bus connectivity, things like that. Kent County Council have been given, I think it's 40 million, I'm not sure, to spend on such a thing from the government. And I think so all pressure needs to be put on to KCC to make sure that the top end of the island and most, you know, is actually accessible. I've got one or two other things. The railway station, I think, is absolutely appalling. Now, I know that's not something from this levelling up fund, but I think Network Rail ought to be jumped all over. We used to have a nice Victorian station with a roof, but sadly, the train didn't stop and some poor lady and a child were killed because the train went through the buffers. And they put up what's really a sort of temporary sheds almost. And, you know, that's hardly something that would welcome people. So I think that's Network Rail, and I think they need a bit of pressure. So the other thing that we did put in was that on the promenade, of course, was laid out in the 1920s by Sheppey Urban District Council with an engineer called Mr. Publican. And it was typical of the 1920s, 1930s, quite attractive and various things. It's gone downhill since, and I don't blame anybody at the moment, but it has gone downhill an awful lot. And there are two things there. One is the Environment Agency are not reinstating the drawings, so the beaches are gone, and they will go because of the longshore drift. So I think they actually need to spend some of their £1.5 million a year that they get to actually reinstate, because they're just not maintaining anything. The other thing is on the promenade, you could always walk from the promenade going and joining the other promenade, the other side of Neptune Terrace. And unfortunately, somebody took their eye off the ball quite some time ago, when after the 1978, was it 79 flood, and they increased the wall height, and they failed to put a gate in there. So now it's completely impossible for disabled people and people with buggies and things like that to get through. So Sheppey Town Council have come up with a plan, and that's absolutely essential. I think the Environment Agency are responsible because it's their wall, and I think we need to start putting pressure on them, you know, without excuse. So there we are. You know, if we want connectivity, then you know, you can't abuse the Disabled Act or whatever they are now. I don't know, it's called Disabled Act, it's called something else. So it's a long time since I worked for a law firm, so I don't remember.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yeah, I echo what Dolly said, really. It's great that we've got that and well done, your presentation was good, but we asked the public what they wanted, and majority of them said a swimming pool, yet that fell on deaf ears. We're now going to build a cafe when Sheerness has got, how many cafes down its high street? An awful lot, nearly as many as the hair salons and nail salons. We're going to have crazy golf. Hallelujah. It really sounds like something somebody picked out at a party. You know, we've got £20 million, everybody put in the most stupid idea and put it out. We've got an island, we're surrounded by water, yet we're not upgrading our swimming pool facilities so that our children can learn to swim. Our pool is closed 9 times out of 10 when it's open. Parents are then not able to get a refund for their children not being able to swim. Yet we're going to have crazy golf and a lovely new cafe, but your children can drown. I really think we need to think about what we've got. We're surrounded by water. But we're all going to be out there in the pouring down rain playing crazy golf. It's not something people are going to look at and think, look, the Isle of Sheppey have got crazy golf, let's go. Let's all flock to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A year ago, I was told there would be a block of toilets up at the end where this, up the end where the sandpit is, what's name? Has that been put on hold now? Because it was promised to be starting in spring at the Bromsvale Borough Council.
That was mentioned earlier on.
Was it?
Yeah.
Who mentioned that? Oh.
Me,
No, but
apologies.
Yeah, you're putting that in the £20 million or whatever.
Yeah.
The Bromsvale Borough Council were already going to put that toilet block in. Yes, a year ago, yeah, going to start in spring. We haven't got it. People are still peeing all over my building down there. No, what's that? It's true.
Yeah.
I echo Ashley's comment, preference cafes on the high street, plenty already. I also think that any soft play, as mentioned, there's got to be something big enough to compete with the likes of Monkey Biz and ones off the island, because people aren't going to travel past that to get to a small soft play. Sheerness had a soft play, but swimming pool is, that's their gymnasium. There was a soft play, Kids City, closed down after COVID, became a daycare centre because the business wasn't viable. So I can't see any sense in having a soft play or a cafe included in that picture. Also, the crazy golf. Is that going to be an enclosed area, or is that going to be open to general public with the hut and the manstand and the golf clubs? Because I can guarantee that will get destroyed by the antisocial behaviour that gets right inside, and that hasn't been addressed by any of the Smith Company.
Strington, sorry, I heard the Environment Agency mentioned, so I don't want to repeat myself. But the last meeting at Sheppey's Working Men's Club, I asked if the council could look into restoring the groins on the beach. I know this is not part and parcel to this, but in my opinion, it would improve the beach area. Can you please tell me what progress has been made? Did anybody ask the Environment Agency about this? They wouldn't have put groins there in the first place if they didn't need them. They're in a bad state of disrepair. Do you know if anything's progressed with that?
Yeah, there was a meeting on the thing there with some representatives of the Environment Agency, and the officer concerned said, "Oh, we won't do that because it will cost us £1,000 a metre." Well, I've costed some groins, so it doesn't come to £1,000 a metre. But anyway, they have got a responsibility, regardless, and we do need to put pressure on them. They don't need to put hardwood on. Hardwood groins were laid at Minster in the 1920s as an employment initiative by Sheppey Rural Council, and of course Sheerness Council has had groins for a long time. That stops the longshore drift. And they haven't maintained anything, which I think is pretty poor, frankly. And, you know, we really need to start, well, I don't mind getting stuff nasty with them because I'm a taxpayer. You know, it's who shouts loudest, really. And I used to be a quiet mouse, but not anymore. Nothing happens.
The original drawings were put in by the district council.
I would have thought so, yes, yes.
If
Ken, on that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of, where am I, you see?
could, if they come with nuts and different.
Tell them we're having a game of praise golf, because we down not winning.
I think the chairman has just decided that they can't afford to do works with their money, and they're going to get rid of Bexhill and a few places like that. So, you know, yes. Anyway, long debate.
I was quite concerned when I read that report on their future non-works.
Yeah, but the Earth's plate is actually sinking, and southern England is sinking, Scotland is going up, and the old cliffs and that are up in the air now. And it's the Earth's plate movement more than
It's a bit like global warming. I've still got my central heating on. Dolly, is this new?
It is, can I just have a quick question about the other part of being interested in, which is obviously the college provision. And I would really like to see that being really open and transparent as well, because from the look of it, what we're saying is that you're going to donate to the college a large amount of land, and I think it's really important that if we're giving public money or levelling up funding to the college, that we know what we're going to get back in return for that. So it would be great to see the offering from the college in terms of what their building is going to potentially look like, or what they're going to be doing in that area, what have they promised, what sort of payback are we going to get, extra courses, are we going to get extra amenities for our students, and obviously what is the long-term future of that money? Does, for instance, are you giving that levelling up funding to that academy or that group that runs that college, or for instance, does the money have a stake in going to use that as an asset? Do they have to pay you rent for the land that you're potentially going to donate to that part of the project? I think there's quite a lot of questions around that area as well, and it would be good to see those kind of appear at some point as well.
Yeah, thank you. So you're right that the car park would be match funding the bid. We are very strongly encouraged to provide 10% of the value of the bid as match funding from other sources. One of the ways that we can do that is perhaps provide college extension to move on to. There's various designs for that being drawn up at present. That's one of the areas, as I mentioned, that we're trying to slim down. Extension. It absolutely will have junior college provision for 14 to 16-year-olds, and it absolutely will have further education provision. What that curriculum at FE level might look like would be a bit dictated by the curriculum. So that's an ongoing conversation. We're nearly there with those conversations. We've said that we need to be at the design freeze stage by sort of end of next week, when we know exactly what's going into the bid. So that will go onto the website when we have that information. But it will absolutely be junior college and some of them.
Could I just come back on that then quickly, just to mention obviously that the island schools go up to 11, they did go up to 13 with the 3 school, the middle school system that we did have, when that changed over. So potentially what we're looking at by providing that system of 14 plus, those children would have to potentially go to another school and then transfer out that school to come back to that college, which it's just a question that may be asked in future. Is that the best thing and safest, most secure, most nurturing environment, education environment for children on Sheppey going ahead, if that makes sense?
Can I come in on that, if I can? I was party to the discussions with the KCC, and I know that obviously what is really desperately required on the island is an alternative secondary provision. And I have to say, I went into that meeting and I thought we weren't going to get support for this additional younger provision. It's not full scale, it's not full 9 yards, which I think we'd all like to see. But it does go some way to creating an alternative, which I think for the island is a step in the right direction. And it also gives those children that want those skills rather than a pure academic educational stream, those options. So I hear what you're saying, that breaks their schooling into different institutions, but it does provide, well, hopefully, because this is a key component, I think, we see, or I certainly saw with the island, is that alternative secondary education. And I hope we need that for the island to find that way.
Before we, is this new?
It's relevant.
New?
Yeah. I'm part of it. There's this assumption, right, that people are going to get off the train and go over to there, right? They're going to go to the Crazy Golf.
That's not new.
But what, the Crazy Golf?
You said this already.
No, I haven't. I said nothing on the golf. The golf is fine weather and kids' holidays, right? And it's still, you can have as many children as you like, but you won't get any from Sheppey East because there's no infrastructure to bring them in on the buses.
They're better off at Sheppey East. It's more for them to.
Oh, so they can just have the golf and not all the other facilities.
It's more for them to do down that end.
I mean, the golf has been brought up so many times, I think it's a no-no.
Well, let's move on. I think we've covered this, but before we do move on, there's another thing in the park.
Yeah, so the elephant in the park is the masts at the SS Montgomery, which were raised in the Reconciliation meeting in March. And we said we would explore the potential to bring them on shore as part of beach bills and via the proposals. We realised quite early we do not have budget to do that.
But we've got the budget crazy now.
Yeah. So the attempts that I was making to explore the possibility of doing that, I left because I knew they wouldn't be budget under line. We have said that we want to write the heritage of the area large throughout this book, and that there will be reflections of history, heritage, GNS throughout placemaking, throughout the public realm. I don't want to labour the word about the golf. I think I just want to say it's a venture golf, it's not race golf. And that's a very, very different game.
So it's Nelson play adventure.
Please.
One of the things that we want to do, so you saw an example there of the kind of scale of adventure golf that we're looking at, which was a dinosaur theme to adventure golf. We're looking at nautical themes, and if you have a chance to Google Smuggler's Cove in Bournemouth, that's the kind of installation that we're looking at, the sort of scale and theming approach that we take.
So just to come back on that, sorry, Chair, let's continue. Those masts are incredibly important and actually should be underestimated what Sheppey's heritage means to itself. Aviation, naval, so the residents love that ship, and if those masts go to Southend, or even worse, go to a garbage dump somewhere in the country, that is an opportunity missed, whether it comes from this funding or different funding. Please listen, we want those masts on Sheppey, we want them, we deserve them, and we cannot say this stronger to any of our councillors. Please let us have our masts. If they come off that ship, they belong on Sheppey, please.
I don't think there's any question needs to be done.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you had quite a good idea, was to actually place them in the moat. You know, the moat is the piece, for those who don't know, between most of Sheerness and the Blue Town and the Royal Dockyards and the Army Barracks. So it's a protection area, and I know it's listed, but it's in a pretty awful state. And to put a slab in there with the mass on there wouldn't detract even from this hysterical England. So I think that would be a good place for them, quite frankly. And they wouldn't then get people playing on them, you know, and the birds that actually roost on them now, the seabirds, I can't, you know, the brain's gone, I'm getting old. But the cormorants, that's it. They'll be able to sit on there and then go out to sea. So I think that was a super idea.
I can't see a lot of, it will be expensive, but I can't see a lot of cost in it. And wave at the back.
Yeah, Phil Crowder, I just want to say as a resident of Sheerness, I don't care where the council finds the money from, but those masts have got to be somewhere in Sheerness.
I think we all agree with you.
Sheerness resident and community.
Okay, let's move on.
Chair, is that not something you can get forwarded to talk to the ministry about?
Possibly. I'll have a word with you. Okay, yeah.
Can I just ask a question? When you went ahead to look at what facilities you were going to put on this new drive, have you had a conversation, you know, sort of a conversation with people of the island, what they wanted?
Yes.
I never received anything.
And they sent us the memo.
Yeah. Well, I never received anything, so I never knew anything about it. So you're deciding that they want to post after all of this, but the kids would love, I'm sure, a bigger skate park, something really to do, and a bigger pool that enhances everything which was there long ago. We had a diving pit, we had a small pool, we had a big fountain. It's a wonderful pool. You put this little tiny pool in it that has had so many repairs on it over the years because it's built inside the other one. So I think we do deserve, rather than a leisure centre, a new fantastic pool, which they are building everywhere else in England, barring on the Isle of Sheppey.
And in Swell.
Did the Love Grove Olympic swimming? No,
That's what
she's
I'm
talking
We've
about.
got a beautiful pool in London that could come down here quite easily. You've got the room for it. You want to build a dry land.
I think personally, but
Sorry, can I just ask, are the tennis courts still overgrown and not used?
no idea, I don't play tennis. Right, we're moving on. Time is pressing. We're moving on to local cycling and walking infrastructure. Hey, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Where would you like me?
Over there, sorry.
You're going up there.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Adrian Oliver. I joined Small Borough Council at the end of February as active travel coordinator. And my role has two main big themes. The first one is to encourage, support, help, advise any cycling or walking initiative across the borough. So, for instance, we're working on some new walking trails for the western area. And in the eastern area, we're helping them with the parishes to town cycling routes. And the Faversham Town Council are planning a cycle fest in July, and they've already started bike hire. So the reason I'm here this evening is really to encourage all of you to think about active travel, think about walking and cycling initiatives that you can organise within your own parish, town, council. And the second reason I'm here is to talk about we'll tell you a little bit more about the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. People really need to see this. So, really, what I want to talk about first is actually where the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan came from. It's in shorthand is LCWIP. I can't keep saying local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, I'll just run out of time. So, LCWIP. These were invented by the government and the Department of Transport about 5 years ago.
And they are really very good. They help authorities like ourselves work out good networks for walking and cycling. 2 years ago, in 2020, things changed. Things changed quite dramatically because the government published a bold vision of something called gear change. You will hear me over there. Yes. Called gear change. All of this, gear change is a strategy to improve walking and cycling, to make walking and cycling something really different in terms of transport, really to make it so much better to walk and cycle everywhere. And gear change came with a budget for Active Travel. The first budget there's ever been for walking and cycling, 2 billion over 5 years. We're 2 years into that spending regime. And with that new infrastructure came new money, came new guidelines. They are quite thick. These are the cycling infrastructure design guidelines. There are walking ones coming soon. Hopefully they won't be steep. But those, with the budgets, with the new guidelines, with the vision, and then finally with a new executive body called Active Travel England, which is led by Chris Boardman. You know him as an Olympic cyclist, but he's also an advocate for cycling in general. And now he is going to lead the Active Travel England board, and they will look after the money. So if you want money, you have to go to them. They will look after these design guidelines. So if you want to plan anything for walking, cycling, you've got to make sure it matches these design guidelines. And if you don't, you won't get the money. And worst of all, if you're a transport authority and you don't do anything about active travel, actually your whole budget for transport is injected. So you've got to do active transport activities.
So when you think we get some pavements to go into the new ways? No.
Well,
I don't think so.
Well, that's the reason I'm here. I'm here because I'm writing a local cycling walking infrastructure plan. But I can't do that without you telling me what you need. Yes.
I live on the lower road.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, if you want to cycle down there, you'll end up in Midway.
I wouldn't advise cycling anywhere on local road.
But so how are we going to get it?
Well, you need to tell me what the problem is, and then we can work out what the solution is. Yeah, I mean,
have a look at the lower road, that's the problem.
I know the lower road. We've already got one element of the solution in place on the lower road, which is from County Corner to. I know, that's a problem. It's isolated.
Yeah.
But it shows what can be done. So that's what we're going to have to look at in terms of moving. Well, we can't put cycle traffic on Low Road. It's a ridiculous place to be. You can't walk beside Low Road.
No.
So if you want to move across the island, we've got to look at another solution. And that's quite a big problem, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. But the thing is, whilst we want to create this local cycle walking infrastructure, if we don't, we won't get any money. So there will never be a solution.
We don't get any money now or anything done.
But you don't tell me what the problem is.
Sorry.
You've got to tell me what the issues are. And then we can write the plan and get those issues in the plan and get some solutions to what to make it so much better. This is not just about infrastructure. This is about encouraging people to make their place, where you live, where you work, where you play, so much better. And it's about rebalancing from private car traffic to walking and cycling. And it's not just major routes along the road. It's about in your towns and in your villages. So it's about, and it's not all about separated cycle paths. It is about putting in pavements. It is about making pavements wider. It is about taking space away from traffic, giving it to people who are walking and cycling. So We started the plan. We are now at the second stage of the plan, which is the information stage, which is why I'm talking to you this evening. And this is the part that involves you. As I said, we can't write a plan without your input. We can't create walking and cycling networks without knowing where you want to go, what you want to change. So I need to know from you and your residents, what trips do you think you can do that you currently plan to do? Driving, what would encourage you to swap those to walking, cycling and wheeling?
Yes. Some of the public footpaths where I live, farmers own either side of them, and so they either let them grow over or put things, they've made the stiles too high for you to either walk yourself if you've got any, movement problems, or if you've got a little dog or anything like that, you can't get over them.
Yeah.
Or a bigger dog, you've got to lift them over. And, there used to be, I've grown, I lived on this island all my life, funny enough, near that man there. I lived just down the hill. He lived in the big house, I lived on the side road. And there were plenty of footpaths there.
Yeah.
We had to walk to Minster School to get to school. But now, footpaths are, people just took them over, the land, they don't want people walking near their land.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. Where I live in Hall, and I would have the same problem. But footpaths form part of this plan. So tell me where the problems are. We'll see what we can do about the solutions. And this is a 10-year plan. This isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, there used to be one that led right from Lower Road, up Martin's Hill, behind Dan houses, and across to Scotland's going now.
Oh, yeah.
Now, once all the houses are built there, they built over them. But if you try and get down to the cliffs from Belfast Lane, there's now a big gates been put up there, so you've got to go over a stile that's, yes, it's technically the right height.
Yeah.
But the other slats in it are so high, if you, like I say, if you've got any health problems with your body, you can't climb over it. There's a couple of areas around there that public footpaths aren't used anymore.
This is what I need to know. These are the details that I don't know because I don't live on the island. I live in Hall, but I know the problems in Hall. So that's the sort of hotspots that you need to tell me about. And we're going to ask you to do that in two ways. Maybe two. First way is actually, we'll do an online survey and we'll ask you where your problems are in terms of walking, cycling and wheeling. What are the barriers? The second way to do that is I would like you to talk to any community group that you feel that would be interested in having a workshop on walking and cycling. And you can have it for your parish councils and the town councils too.
Is there a group that runs, they've got lights like in their jackets, I've seen them at the night time.
Yeah.
They might be good to ask because they do have to run near the front lines.
Yeah. If you have contact with those community groups, please send them over to me. Adrian Oliver at swell.gov.uk. Just email me across those people. I will email across to all of you the online survey. Please could you share that with your network as wide as you can, because we need as many people giving us that knowledge, all those little details that you know because you live here, and all those other people know because they live here. So all those details so that we can actually put them into a plan. It will be a very long list of stuff to do, but that's fine. We'll put that over a 10-year period and we'll try and get it all done. Yes?
So is that your wider survey?
Yes.
What are you doing to increase accessibility for that consultation for people who are not online?
I will come and talk to groups and I will run workshops with groups if they want that. In terms of people could just send me things, it doesn't matter how it comes. It can just be sent over to me, that's one of us.
Would you potentially be interested in going to the public areas where, like, for instance, the local libraries?
Yes.
Making that consultation available through that
Yeah.
public area as well, maybe?
Absolutely. Please, yes, invite me and I will come. That's fine. Okay, so, so active travel is quite a thing now. There's budgets, there's lots of political will to make things better for walking, cycling, wheeling. And it is all about, as I said earlier, about restoring this balance on our streets, away from cars and back to people. And that creates nicer places to be. It creates livable neighbourhoods, streets where we can play, chat, meet, places where we all feel a bit safer and a bit more comfortable. That's what active travel is all about. Any more questions? Yes.
Sorry, last one. Your area of work, are you going to be feeding this information back into the local plan?
The plan is that once we've done this part of it, we move on to network planning for walking and cycling, which is stages 3 and 4. Stage 5 is getting all that list of works into some sort of priority order. Stage 6 is where we work with other officers and other members of the council to actually get the local subcommittee or infrastructure plan adopted. And it's adopted at Swale and it's adopted at Kent as well. So yes.
I think it would be a little lot safer here if we didn't have lots and lots of new housing moving onto the island, taking up space on the roads, which were, in the majority of them, were actually laid down in medieval times, and some of them are still the same width as they were in medieval times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons we have all this activity for active travel is because we have a very finite road system. A lot of it medieval, in our towns it's Victorian, and there's not a lot we can do about it. So we have to move people out of the cars and moving actively, yes.
We met the other week and then just sort of chat about that point restricted time between Queen and whatever and Organic Forum and Minster.
Yes.
As mentioned about Lower Road being totally unsafe, how could you see any way of linking this part of the island, Minster and Sheppey part of the island, and the eastern end of the island, that wouldn't involve purchasing tens of thousands of square kilometres of farmland to build something on? You've got no options in my eyes. The roads aren't wide enough and the fields are full of houses or grass.
Yes. Well, there isn't a solution at the moment, but we're going to try really hard to find one, because actually we need that east-west corridor. We need it. We need it for walking, we need it for cycling, we need it for residents, we need it for holiday makers. So it's something we really do need. So we're going to look at it any way it can be done. Not going to give up on that one.
Yeah,
I was just to answer that question, I don't know if it would work. The track of the old railway line.
That was mentioned.
It does go this anymore.
But just bang through.
It does make this anymore. The house is built on it.
Sorry, yes.
I just look from my perspective, locally.
Sorry.
So I'm a resident in Sheerness and I try to walk or cycle as much as I can.
Yeah.
So one thing that stops me is the condition of the footpaths in Sheerness and the potholes in the roads. I won't cycle now because there are so many potholes and I can't guarantee that I'm going to get to my destination without falling off my bike. And walking on footpaths, many of the pavements are so uneven with paving slabs, sticking up. I'm worried for not only my safety, but my mum, who's nearly 90, when she's out walking, that she's going to trip up. Are you going to be putting pressure on KCC to improve the infrastructure that we've got before you start putting in new infrastructure?
a lot of it is about improving what we've already got. So with pavements, it's not just about how level they are, but also their width, and eliminating pinch points and putting in drop curves so they make them more accessible. So pavements are key elements of this. And yes, we will put as much pressure as possible on our hand as council to do something about that. But also, potholes. Potholes are a pain. There is a process that we can go through to get all those potholes filled. People just need to report them.
Yeah, I was about to say that one thing that's something a lot of people.
Can we have one meeting here, please? If you want a meeting, go outside.
Sorry, we're talking about potholes. You said you could phone up and they would come out and mend them.
That's it.
If you just.
Do it online, on the phone, but then don't.
We're trying to have a meeting up this end.
Sorry. I was going to say, one thing that's been picked up over the last 12 months or so is the electric scooters that nobody seems to take any responsibility for enforcing, because they are really all having up when they're on time, they're on the pavement. Very quiet.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
And actually get audible hearing tends to not be as sharp, shouldn't it? To be fair. Should kill it. Because electric scooters are just over exactly where they leave and run into. That's bad enough as one.
E-scooters are currently being, the e-scooter thing has run out of control. And the government is now a little bit late, but actually the government is now legislating in this parliament for e-scooters. What that legislation looks like, we don't know yet, but they will be banned from neighbours, for instance, which will allow police and other authorities to actually impound scooters, fine people, as they do in London.
No, can I interrupt? They're already illegal on the pavement. They're already illegal on the public highway. The police are taking no action whatsoever against them. The only place they are legal at the moment, apart from trial areas, is on your own private land.
Absolutely.
And no action is being taken against them.
They are in an unlegislated environment. You're absolutely right. The government is doing something about that, which is good news. And the police should, as you're right, should be doing something about it already, as they do around the country. Often it's not just impounded, it's destroyed, and you get a £600 fine too. So it's a risk that people on these scooters are taking. They get away with it here. That's something to take up.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the footpaths, that they are generally the responsibility of Kent County Council. The roads are, except for the trunk road, the A249 trunk road. About 20 years ago, the Swale Council at the time got, I think it was £1 million, to do a cycleway from Queenborough to Sheerness, and in fact, it is there. Whether it's signposted or not, I don't know, but I know they put traffic lights on the 249 near Queenborough where the cyclists can cross. But so that's the start.
Yes.
But yeah, these e-scooters, though, I think it's really appalling. And okay, we're all taxpayers. We pay more in council tax to Kent Police Authority than we do to Swale Borough Council. Yeah. So I think it's up to us to rattle a few cages in the police authority.
Yeah, going back to potholes, if the people that repair the potholes did a proper job, not just put a little dog stuff in the top. This is an ongoing thing. This road here, Walton Road, which goes to where I live, to see people out there working on the side of the road, shoving a couple of shovelfuls and putting it with their feet, that's not repairing the road. That's the sort of things that need stopping, because I'm a taxpayer. And that, we pay for that. We all pay for that here, don't we?
We get away from the subject now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Last one. Ollie?
I just want to say on the subject of electric vehicles, that they should be part of the active travel option, actually, because there is no real difference between electric scooters and electric bikes. They are going to be needed, actually, electric transport. There's not enough infrastructure for electric transport as it is. We know that come 2030, with the way the government is going, they're going to expect poorer communities to somehow magically appear with over £30,000 for an electric vehicle. That's not sustainable. So I'm all in favour of enforcing against rules, definitely, but electric vehicles shouldn't be discounted as the right of bit of a nuisance, absolutely. But they are much needed, especially by the betterment of the community, especially what is more harrowing to see is the fact that parents are using these electric vehicles to transport their children to school. They're doing that out of need. They're not doing that to annoy people. That's their option. And actually, that needs to be looked at in a bigger scope of things, that people are not going to be able to afford to get their children to school unless we look at this active transport in its entirety rather than discounting options because people find them a nuisance.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Chairman. Andy Booth, Kent Council. I congratulate you in your new position at Swale and then the challenge that you've got before you. In my memory, at least 3 surveys echoing what you've just described have gone before you. I'd be very interested to see anything that's come of those 3 surveys. I think it rhymes with not a lot. I don't want to put too much of a down on that. My question to you is, over the past 8 years, I've been involved with this, like it or not, wonderful idea called the Round Britain Footpath, of which the Isle of Sheppey, like it or not, is going to have 3/4 of its circumference with a footpath. How is your initiative going to dovetail into that?
Okay, so within my work plan, once that path is sanctioned by the minister, who has it on his desk at the moment, I'm responsible for making sure that we post it, making sure that people come and visit and use it. So that's it.
Okay.
What else would you like to say?
I think it's an important point to note because there's been a significant amount of public objection to the Round Island footpath in particular. Yeah, and
Which
also,
is the reason why it's still on this desk.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I don't subscribe to being a supporter of the scheme because of the potential damage that will do to the fauna and agricultural life of this island.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave it there. Time's moving on again. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll move on then to item 7, which is the Barton's Point walkway.
Thank you, Chair. So members of this committee will remember the various points on this being raised previously, and they have agenda item 7 as a report in front of them, which has been discussed by the previous informal cabinet. As you're aware, the structure is in need of repair. It is secured at the moment and it is largely intact, but there are things that obviously need to be looked at to keep it within, I suppose, to recognise its local heritage interest, albeit it is not listed. So the paper in front of you gives some options, and I think the purpose of bringing this paper here tonight, and then Mr. Keys bring it here tonight, was to have a discussion about the options that are available in front of you, to see what you
may or may not have in terms of ideas, or may or may not want to choose to perhaps put forward back to the council in terms of the elements that might need to be retained or improved or even made good. So that is what pages 5 and 6 cover. So if you look on page 6, there are 3 options that have been currently looked at, all of which are different in cost. Swam Borough Council has the budget for the option 2, which is the sort of the £10,000 option, which to officers seem the most sensible and pragmatic way to go forward, because it takes into account heritage preservation, but also the financial constrictions that are on the council in terms of what it might or could do. So, but before obviously moving forward, it's about having a conversation here about what this committee wants to explore. I believe this, the parish council considered options in August of 21 at their meeting, and that centred around retaining as much of the whole structure as possible, and seeing whether or not that could sort of benefit a bigger regenerative scheme within the country park. Obviously, the other options have been suggested, to retain or replicate just a small section of the roof structure to the way, and or to add in history interpretation. Obviously, the third option, which is 200 to 250,000 as an estimate, it is at the moment out of scope in terms of the budget the council has. So the area committee has asked which of the options would be your preference. Would the committee be prepared to allocate funding on top of the £10,000 the council has to support further options? Would the committee consider seeking third-party contributions, which I assume so that means external funding if we're able to?
I would like to propose option 2.
Second that.
It is, that roof is in a dangerous condition, which is why the council put up that fencing, which is not cheap. That has not stopped the little children, likely, getting in there and playing. If that roof were to drop on their head, it would kill them, obviously. But maybe not so, obviously, just make them extremely disabled. But then it'd be the council's fault. The council should have done something. So I think it's been there long enough. And I think something needs to be done. The only budget that there is 10k. I propose that we get on and do take a look at leave the wall, which was the black wall, and at least it will be safe then for people to walk along their watching distance. I think if we decided let's have that scheme, let's start looking for money. The longer this is left, the more chance of someone getting disabled or killed.
Okay, second, Simon?
I'd second that, Mr. Chairman. There's only one thing I've got is where the new really security fencing is in place now due to the contaminated land and those type of things. The fencing goes too far. Where the end of the concrete butt, not being the butts of the range, there's a butt and it ends at a slight screwy angle. And that's been fenced in as well. If you was going to make that walkway, that part of that fencing needs to go. But other than that, I certainly support making it safe that SPC cannot be prosecuted in any way for the state of the roof.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, having been a user of it many, many times in the old days with bullets flying over, but I think realistically there are other historical buildings and things that ought to be preserved. And I think the taking the roof off, there isn't much. Some of the scrappies, I think, took a lot of the metal roof, because it used to be a lot longer. It used to go all the way to the canal bank. But a great chunk of it's gone, so I think realistically, it would be far better to make it safe, take the top off, and then if there's any money later on for historic buildings and things, that would be far better spent. And so I totally agree with two fellow councillors.
Just the end of it was cut off when they put the new access in.
Yeah, that's right.
Mark's point, because up to then, the only access to the rifle range was over the footbridge.
It's
just been replaced. Right, anybody else want to speak? Yes.
Well, I've obviously got an opinion on this because I ended up on the front page of the paper with granddads hand to save the covered way, if you remember. I think you've got to look at the bigger picture on this. I'm not really in favour of just knocking it down for knocking it down sake. I'm a mechanical engineer. I know what I'm talking about. That can be saved. I've also got involved in the building business, so I know that what we cover the topic can be repaired. But I made a mistake saying we would make a jolly good place for putting beach huts. But what I should have said, we could use that area for say little cottages or something like that. Like other people said, you can't see the sea from there. I know there's a problem in as much as the people that would have the opportunity of staying there would have to cross the main road, which is quite busy. But surely that could be sorted out. And at the present moment, it's quite a nasty area. So you've got the opportunity now of improving. It's got once. Let's have something nice in Sheppey. If nothing else, it'll make a jolly good job. It's sheltered from the sea one way, sheltered the other way, and it we sell funding. We could sell those off or lease them. Wouldn't cost really. It could be done. It could be improved. I had an idea of perhaps improving the lake in front of it, clearing all the rubbish and tires and let's get something nice from Sheppey, shall we? And let's face it, if this wall was in Sittingbourne, probably there wouldn't be a problem there to save it, would it?
I think you're just agreeing with all of us that we maintain it in as reasonable conditions as we can until we can look at the whole area and deal with that as one good thing.
But I was more interested in all of the area.
Yeah, that's what I've just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have the council already made up their mind? Is it coming down?
No. We are here this evening to decide what to do with it.
Good.
Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Just from, I know it's a Minster asset, I agree with that. We've very few areas in that area of the island that are actually no-go areas, actually. So, for instance, the seafront on Sheerness is one of them after dark. There's certain areas where you just don't go. During the pandemic, Tony Cooper, who runs the Sittingbourne Food Provision Project, very worst, cited several occasions that he had to visit Barnes Point for homelessness support and for the facilities he provides. What my real concern is that when we've got areas like the covered walkway and places that are no-go areas, that is not just for antisocial behaviour, but there are people that are in real need that get drawn to these places because they're slightly off the beaten track, they're not very well viewed, and after dark they become far more dangerous. So if you cited children in that area, yes, I completely see that point, but I'd also like it to be said that actually it's not a great place, for instance, if homeless people are looking for shelter. That is the real danger, that area around there, because there's no support there, there's no help if something goes wrong at all. So I think that something does need to be done, but from Minster's point of view and from Sheerness's point of view, we shouldn't have any no-go areas on the island at all. And I second anything that means that it's available for people to use on a regular basis and people feel safe and comfortable using that area whenever they choose to.
Okay. Yes.
Just, obviously, there's the possibility of attracting additional funding. Sheppey as a community is very, I think, quite tight. I think the appeal went out for people to contribute towards it, much like they did to the new memorial in the town. There may be some larger companies that want to contribute towards option 3. With the use of their staff, apprentices, materials, they can write off their tax bills. I don't think it's worth just jumping and saying, I've only got £10,000 to do the cheap option, because we lose something that there's not one other one in the world, in the country. So can we not go to the local companies, building firms, and ask them if they can donate time and apprenticeships and materials to it?
Yeah, I think that for far too long, heritage buildings and other sites on this island have been left for so long that by the time they get around to doing something with them, they're unretrievable. I think it's time that we make the area safe, but have a positive plan to restore it and get it back to use for the people on the island and for visitors. That could be quite a nice attraction, the whole area there. But we need to make sure that the council have that in their sights to restore it, rather than just forget about it like that. You know, people have forgotten about so many other historic buildings in the town that eventually had to be pulled down and done away with. I think it would be scandalous if we lose it.
Cameron? Yeah, thank you. Firstly, picking up on the point that was made there about match funding, I mean, that paragraph there says that we can't even afford to put history interpretation boards up because of the financial constraints. Frankly, that's rubbish. If you can't afford to do boards. But we've just tendered for the contract to run Barnes Point. This plot of land wasn't included. Why not? Because that could have been an opportunity to get some match funding in as a wider scheme for the park. And I think that's an opportunity that's been completely lost. The second point, Minster Parish Council considered the options. What are they contributing financially? Because I know, speaking as a Queenborough Town Councillor, when we've had meetings with officers from SBC and we've set out what things we want to do, the answer is we've got better access to funding because we can raise our precept to an unlimited level. And I just think if Minster Parish Council felt that strongly, they could contribute some money towards it.
We could.
I think it's not clear. I think that's what the bullets were alluding to in terms of seeking third-party contributions and topping up the current budget that the council has. It would be that. That's the bit I think you're right. It would be about asking you as the area committee to look into that rather than it being necessarily something that we would lead on as the council, because at the moment, and I don't necessarily disagree with your point around forms not costing a lot, but at the moment, the 10,000 that the current budget that the council has would cover, as it says, the option 2. So anything else would need to be looked at in terms of committee funding or external. But I will, in terms of your question, I would have to get back to you on why that wasn't included in. I imagine it's because it's just around the scope of the cafe.
Yeah,
and the elements that were in
So
the
it wasn't out to tender, it was expressions of interest, which is actually quite different. And there's a number of parties, as you're maybe aware, that have expressed that interest. So it's exploring those expressions of interest and the remit of the proposals.
Basically, we're looking at making it safe at the moment, pending a bigger scheme. Okay, Andy.
Chairman, it's been proposed and seconded. I propose we go straight to the vote.
Okay. Those in favour of option 2, please show. Are there any members against? That's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 8. Jen.
Item 8 is the matters arising which are items that were raised at previous meetings and the progress on them. The report does set out the progress. There's one item that Emma Wiggins is going to update on specifically.
Thank you. Just wanted to pick up on the first item about the coach parking in Bluetown, particularly the Shipman Shore car park that's there with regards to the update. For the minutes, if I may, Chair, can I just clarify the position because it's not clear with the most recent updates. So I just wanted to provide further information on that can be added to the report and amended if that's okay. And ultimately, the position is that where we stand at the moment, and I believe Councillor James is on the line, if you can hear me. Councillor James approached KCC because it turns out that the parking spaces that particularly being looked at are actually on KCC land. So that does limit our ability to influence. And so Councillor James has asked for a meeting with the KCC traffic team. They are quite a depleted team at the moment and will be coming back to meet hopefully with Councillor James with regards to that issue when they have a bit more resource. That was a couple of weeks ago. But also to amend the actual update to say that owing to issues obviously, as I mentioned, outside the council's control, that at the moment that sort of the idea around the car parking cannot be progressed by us at the moment. However, should it be able to, I believe that it will be part of any decision making if that's appropriate at the next or appropriate communities committee.
So there you go. The Shipman Shore car park it hasn't been maintained properly for many, many years, and that is Swale's responsibility, not Ken's. But it's on Swale land. But I think in view of the fact that all sorts of people are using it on a commercial basis, maybe, I think I won't be very popular, but I think it ought to be a permit car park, and possibly with coaches later on, but a permit car park, and only one permit issued to any one person, so that you don't get a whole load of vehicles that frankly don't contribute anything to the community and just cost us taxpayers money. So I think it ought to be a permit area.
I
don't know if I've got to read between the lines somewhere, but Peter alluded to it. Doesn't matter how many staff KCC have or haven't got, until we have free and open access to our property, we can't actually do anything with it, whether it's marking bays out or put the machine in or anything else. So unless and until, will a report be going to the community committee outlining council is proposing to do, if they can say, as well. Would actually get vacant possessions for the money.
I need to go back on that, Councillor Harrison, because obviously, as you know, the committees are decision making, and that obviously, with regards to that legal issue, is a legal element that legal services are looking at. But I take your point, and we need to see what the decision is and whether that is around what to do with the car park, what's viable in the car park. Then that would be the report to come. But you're absolutely right. Until we, I suppose, resolved the legal issues, which I'm not going to go into detail now, then absolutely. But I think my understanding is that the report that would be coming to the committee would be around what to do on that site, what's possible on that site, and that obviously is an option.
Does that come to the bylaws, parking bylaws? And if not, we could actually make a bylaw relating to the car park.
All I can say, councillor, has been extensive. Advice about that side.
And we need to pay for a very expensive heavy frame.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, just to add, there's a conversation that never comes up this year, I'm sure, and it should. That school is less than 300 yards away from the Sheppey car park. If that car park was usable and there was a safe crossing place for children, tourists, caravans, like owners to get to that car park from one side of the road to the other without risking certain death at times on that road, then that car park would be usable for the children and it would solve quite a number of parking issues potentially along the Marine Parade. But at the moment, that car park is not usable for parents. I certainly wouldn't arrange to meet my child in that car park, not for the sake of the road, but for sheer safety, especially in winter months. And I think the school could provide good traffic for that car park, and there is no safe crossing place on Marine Parade for any of those school children to either get to the seafront, which is the fat bit of the park, into shares, or to go the other way and meet their parents in a safe car park because there's no crossing place, and that car park is full 99% of the time from static vehicles, should we say.
Crossing issue could be taken up by the town council and they could install some crossing points. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is connectivity across Sheppey. We've just dealt with that. Over to town. Being in town weekend relation, done that one. Restoration of War Memorial. I think again, thanks to Peter for his work in producing that, and it's quite a statement to achieve this. You were saying anything, Peter?
Yeah, I did get pinged by somebody complaining about behind the wall memorial, but I said, of course, we can't take anything away until the COVID testing station, which quite rightly was put there, but that hasn't gone yet. So I suppose it's a low priority for NHS. But we have got a concern that the back of the wall, and I hope people are not broadcasters, but that graffiti artists might have a go. So I think we're going to. I own the Harris fencing, and I'm quite happy to leave that there for the moment as for security. So
what's the hedge going?
Yeah, it does. I've got some hedging ready, and I did have permission originally to plant some new trees along the back. So we have got a project there, but we can't do anything at the moment. But otherwise, it's, I have to say, it wasn't me that did the wall, but the quality, I think, is exceptional. And it's a credit to the stonemasons that did it, and also cleaning and repairing the existing Grade 2 listed memorial, which is 100 years old. And they managed to fix the arm because that was in rather dodgy state. So that's all been done by a very qualified stonemason.
Excellent, thank you. Food and Russian and regeneration, anything, Cameron?
We haven't had a board meeting since last August.
Okay. Item 9 is the public forum, and we've got Chris Reed who wants to speak on Neptune Terrace steps.
I realise it's already been mentioned at this meeting. I bring it up as often as possible. I have made a petition of about 600 or 700 people who need something doing about getting rid of the steps at Neptune Terrace, which would ensure that people could actually cycle or wheel, as Adrian was talking about, from Minster all the way down to Sheerness, to go to the swimming pool or Tesco's or wherever else they liked, off the horrible dangerous road. I cycle along the horrible dangerous road most days, and I would absolutely love to be able to cycle up the promenade, but you can't, because once you get to those steps, you're stuck, and you can't go any further either way. And the other thing, which Dolly also alluded to, was the lack of lighting. All these things have been brought up before, and they get talked about at these meetings. Martin, yeah, I mean, you know, I've talked to him about it several times, and he said yes. Sheerness Town Council would like Swale Borough Council to put in some, or to reinstall the lights for danger, and then Sheerness Town Council would like to put in some more decorative, you know, seaside style lights, because we all want to encourage tourism, nice places for visitors. So, as I say, you know, these things have been mentioned before, so I'm not going to go on that.
I don't remember what meeting it was, but this area committee agreed to give the balance of its funding towards the caring the rights of the promenade. And I stand to be corrected and against that, but it is a question of resources and whether they can get down to get the work done. But it has been agreed that they will be done.
My understanding is that I've got down here the 9,000, it might not be 9,000, that actually that was identified, and that is in the work to do this, so that is, you know, I don't have the exact dates, but obviously come back and update in the future in the next September meeting, but my understanding is that's been looked at.
Yeah, Chair, is this time to bring up the proposed cement works?
No,
Why?
we talk about street lights on the seafront.
So when can I talk about cement works? I've actually been to Aarhus in Denmark and seen the cement works, and modern cement works, and it's disgusting. So I want to tell people what this means if we have a cement works.
Have you actually seen the application?
No, the application was that. You're telling me that I haven't seen the plans. Well, I haven't seen the plan, but I've seen a very modern cement works in Aarhus in Denmark, gushing out dust.
No, you need to see the plan for this. It's not actually a cement work.
Yeah, it's going to be grinding, making cement.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same as mine in Aarhus. The modern one. Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of the island, if it goes ahead.
Okay.
I've just been on Google about cement
Wait.
works.
So in terms of the update that we've managed to receive in terms of your request, my understanding is that the application is being dealt with by the KCC as it falls within their jurisdiction, not Swale Borough Council. So as such, we only act as a consultee. So as part of the consultation request, we've sought the advice of environmental health, who provided suggested conditions relating to dust generation. He did identify concerns regarding noise pollution. As a result, a formal consultation response from Swale Borough Council to Kent has not yet been issued, as we are awaiting further information from them on our questions. Case officer looking at the application from KCC's point of view is a chap called Adam Thomas. So it's with KCCs, we will do our best to put forward those concerns that we have, you've raised, we will see.
Yeah, can I just ask as well, Borough Council, a bit like admin there?
We
I'm
literally,
just going to
we don't get asked that question, so we will be providing our advice from an environmental health point of view, which, as I say, will raise those concerns.
Environment Health must know that within 5 miles of these works, it is dangerous. Within 20 miles of this work, it is dangerous. And that's all on Google's look at. So, because I only live a quarter mile away from it, so I'm quite concerned. We're not only that, my 17 grandchildren.
Do any of the town council board say?
I'm happy to, Chair. Emma is correct and currently sits in the remit of KCC, which I'm the incumbent chairman of the planning committee at the moment. There will be a site visit by KCC, planning committee, at a time to be agreed. I think we should be cautious about bandying the word dangerous at a public meeting. Very cautious about that, which I do not subscribe to, Chairman. And anything that is decided by Kent County Council and any comments that come from the consultees, including the Borough Council, are taken extremely seriously. And no decision will be made until a full and proper understanding of the full application is made. And that meeting will be a public meeting when it comes to cases.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just once again, I lived in Queensland for quite a few years, and they wanted a toxic waste factory there, where they told all our residents there would be no emissions out the chimney. That wasn't true. The actual firm next door, the residents all got together, couldn't do anything about it because they would obviously have more money and power. But it was actually I think was it Dalton factory over there? They found the dust was getting in their China and they actually stopped it. And if this thing tonight we come here to look at, if there's going to be all that dust, what's that going to do to all the people that want to use this facility?
Understand your concerns.
Yes. Dolly.
Sorry, can I just add to that, obviously anyone can put a presentation on that planning application. As far as I was aware, the planning officer for KCC said that representations can be made right up to pretty much the day before it goes into committee, actually. So anyone can comment, even though there are consultees like Swell, like Sheppey is a consultee as well. Anyone can make that thing, but I would agree with Andy, actually, that you have to look at the planning application, make a representation based on the planning application. If you don't understand the planning application, that's okay. Then you can ask questions to help you understand the planning application. And anyone can ask those questions because it's going to affect your area. But it's all on there to look at. I don't know, maybe what the number of the application on the top of my head, but maybe there's a way we can make that application number more public, so lots more people can actually look at the application as it is. Maybe that's a good way forward, so it can be looked at properly.
Okay, thank you for that. Linda, are you on the other end of the phone?
Talk about tea.
Here,
That's better.
I'm outside in the garden.
Carry on, Linda.
I had 3 questions. One was about the cement works. The other was I wanted to know what progress had been made with regards to the suggestion that was made by the Planning and Transportation Group with regards to diverting the buses so that we could have a new bus hub and that the people in Sheerness could be sheltered whilst they're waiting for the buses rather than having to stand out in the rain, which is what they do at the moment.
Thank you very much. No.
I don't recall it ever coming.
No. No, we can't answer you at the moment. We'll look into this for you.
I think there was going to be a conversation with KCC. Monique was going to speak to KCC on that matter, and she was going to report back, but obviously not.
No, she hasn't reported back yet.
She can't, she's not happy.
No, so, and if that was, if it was to be linked to the levelling up fund bid, Linda, then I know that obviously isn't, which was said before, earlier this evening, that's not part of the criteria, and certainly any of the infrastructure for buses has not been included in the bid.
Okay.
Nor has Neptune Terrace, that is too costly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Linda. We'll move on now to.
Sorry, can I have one further question?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. I think it's appropriate to raise it at this committee, and I would ask for Emma in her capacity as a senior officer, respectfully, to bring back to this committee at an appropriate time further details of the utterly disgusting and illegal activity that is taking place not 3 miles from where we sit this evening, where over 18 months' time, hundreds of thousands of tons of spoil has been dumped on the North Shoreline at Eastchurch, illegally. Now, we've spoken this evening about the state of the roads. The roads, as I'm sure everybody in here travels along the lower road, has deteriorated significantly in the past 18 months because of the dozens per day of heavy goods vehicle movements that travel past this village hall down to the site. I understand the police are involved. I understand highways are involved. KCC highways, that is. I understand the Environment Agency is involved, and I understand Natural England are involved. I think it is extremely important that the public of the Isle of Sheppey are made very aware of what is happening. It is an environmental disaster, I put to you, Chairman, that is unfolding as we sit here, and apparently nothing is being done. Now that will bring silence to this hall. Nothing is being done. There will be a significant cost for the removal of that spoil, and I hope all those associated with it are thrown in prison for a very long time. You can minute that. It is a disaster that is happening before us, and it's nice to talk about let's put in some footpaths and let's do this and let's spruce up the towns, and we have a catastrophe happening today. So I request through you, Chair, that Swale Borough Council senior officers bring back a report to this committee for the public to hear as to what the engagement is and what action is being taken in a combination with those local authorities.
Yes, I agree.
You can tell I'm a little bit passionate about that, Chairman. Well, I won't tread into what the waste is, but let's just say it's illegal, so it's not going to be topsoil. I think I won't dabble into things I can't commit to. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Booth, let me take that back, but we will see what we can do by way of update. If it's a current police case, which I believe it is, then we might be limited in what can be disclosed, but I absolutely agree with you that we know that it's a serious issue. And as you say, multi-agency response to that is being looked at the moment. So let's see what we are able to bring back in terms of by way of update, in terms of September meeting, I think.
Thank you very much. I think just to add to that, we're very proud of the triple SI sites on the Isle of Sheppey. And they are being impacted upon as we speak, which is again illegal activity.
I don't fully understand it because I know people who have been prosecuted for dumping one lorry over earth in the wrong place.
Yes. If I bring 3 bags of rubbish to your front door and leave them there, the police will be at my house before I go in. You know that.
Okay, let's move on.
Not that I would.
The next item is item 10. Some people do.
Can I interrupt? Because the business about Neptune Terrace, we got kind of taken over by the cement works. And I thought I just heard Emma say that there's no chance of, what is going to happen about Neptune Terrace?
So my understanding is that we obviously raised it as part of, because it was fed back to us in terms of the consultation around the levelling up bid. So it's not necessarily something that was discounted, you know, in terms of looking at it, because it was, we did discuss that. My understanding is that obviously it's the Environment Agency, as Mr McDonald has alluded to, it's their responsibility. They don't disagree with, I think, the Sheerness Town Council's ideas on what can be done there. My understanding, though, is that they won't or can't fund it, and it is their responsibility. So I know that Joanne has been speaking with colleagues at Sheerness Town Council about us working together to provide a letter to the Environment Agency to see whether or not there are possibilities or what they may or may not be able to do. Because my understanding is that it's going to cost in the region of, I don't quite know this, but around 150,000, which again wasn't viable as part of the bid. However, again, my understanding is that, sorry, the 150,000 is something that the Sheerness Town Council are looking to support by way of public realm improvements. And it may well be that if the Town Council are willing to look at part funding some of this work, then it could help bring the Environment Agency to the table. So I know that Joanne is talking, I believe, by the end of this week, continuing those conversations with the town councils to see what might be possible. Because if they offer some money, they might be then willing. But again, it's about that lobbying, I think, Mr McDonald, as you say. So that could be an option. So it's not discounted in terms of, I think this is what we said all along, where we have ideas and we've sought ideas around the levelling up that are just not possible in the first phase. It's about looking at alternatives and looking at securing additional funding or other means by which to secure those other ideas. And this is another example of that. So again, I come in, obviously I can't speak for the town council, but we'll see what happens with regards to potentially moving forward with the Environment Agency.
Right. I mean, I put this forward long before there was talk of the levelling up fund. It needs doing. It really, really, really needs doing. There's hundreds of people that would cycle along there. I see them, and especially when they shut those floodgates in the winter, you get a trickle of people cycling along there. In the summer, when you can go down onto the road and then back up again, you get quite a few, but you would just get so many more people able to use the promenade to travel from Minster to Sheerness, and I think it's essential to get it done.
Okay, thank you. Item 10, under the new committee system, this is one of the places that we can actually feed in items to the new committees. I don't know if there are any items members wish to highlight to feed into the meetings.
Yeah, I'd like to know what progress has been made by the Coastal Policies Group with regard to the change in policy on the, not the triple SI, but the change from no intervention, with the appalling amount of erosion now, no intervention to one of protection. That was supported cross-party by the vast majority of councillors. And, you know, apparently the Environment Agency are being asked, but the Environment Agency, frankly, they're like most government departments, most civil servants, they will try, and I don't say this lightly or from a case of anything defamatory, but they do their very best not to spend anything on anything. And that was, you know, I won't go into it now, but there is a particular thing that went on, and I've got the evidence of it, so I can say that without being sued. So there is a policy change. It's Swales' policy, and apparently on the order of things, Swale can decide. Well, Swales decided. So the committee, the Coastal Policies Group, really haven't got any right for people from outside to interfere. You know, we've got all this housing, as we say, and there's land going at a very increasing rate. And, you know, it has to stand and fall on the cost-benefit analysis of the government department. And it more than meets that in the case of Eastchurch Gap. That blows a hole in it, quite frankly, and I know the current leader actually voted in favour of changing policy. It would only stand finance if it came for the cost-benefit analysis that it showed an advantage. I think originally it was over 50 years, but some of them talk about 100 years now. But Eastchurch Gap more than meets that. So, you know, that's possibly part of the problem that was alluded to earlier.
All I can say is that my understanding is that there is a meeting between stakeholders, officers-wise, on Thursday. So officers have been, since you last mentioned it and we are progressing it, my understanding is that's say Thursday this week.
Yeah, I was originally a stakeholder when the Environment Agency wanted to abandon all the sea walls from Sheerness to Queenborough, and that would have left the back door open. So I pointed that out to them and told them that their budget wouldn't be big enough to pay all the compensation to the people who would be flooded in Queenborough and Sheerness. So they changed their mind and decided to make it one of protection. Yeah, they did also. I was a stakeholder at the meeting.
The big changes in the sea walls now.
Oh, it has.
And the water wouldn't get through from the south of the island to Sheerness and Queenborough. It has been changed.
Yes.
Okay. Any issues, Peter?
Just to know, you're asking for further projects, you know, I'll suggest one for the future. I know there's lots of urgent things on. I'd like to put forward a proposal to make a little esplanade in Queenborough from the causal lane running to the front of the park, about 60 metres, and go about 8 metres out. Because it's becoming more and more popular, people coming down to watch the sunsets, and it would really bring more benefits that so many visitors coming in the evening just to watch that. Everyone's rushing on to Carnival Sport or trying to look over the seawall, and a little esplanade there would really make the area and also use the park as well. We talk about talking to the chemical people that trying to get their car back like that. But that's I'd like to put that forward as a proposal, and I'm going to submit a budget kind of costing as I see it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Not sad to me if it's an idea.
I think the other one that we've already spoke about this evening is a bigger picture for Barton's Point, which is something that I think it should be bringing in and starting to be. Sorry.
sorry, Chair, I don't know what place to put council problem, if this is the wrong place. I thought it might be nice for the area committee to consider some sort of plaque or memorial something to highlight the work of key workers and NHS staff through the pandemic for the island, and to have a little bit of community focus. I don't think it's relevant to do it through parishes. I think it's relevant to do it as an island and kind of do something that is, you know, for everybody from the island. I don't know whether maybe the hospital's the right place.
That would be a good thing for you to put in as a bid on the funding of the committee. So,
Only one thing, sir, which has happened this evening, insofar as we've had the officers, we've had the gentleman from the planning committee, who know this adventure golf. Pretty obvious from the people here tonight don't want adventure golf, who want to swim.
I think that has come over quite well.
I don't know that it
The problem is that if you keep talking about golf, people are going to get it in their minds and they're going to start thinking golf. So forget golf, because all of us have forgotten it.
I just think that that gentleman should take his plans back, talk with the officers, right, and find out where all the people that wanted improved swimming facility, ideally to a little extent.
I think he got the picture. I think he did. Any other things that anybody wants to add? No, okay. Move on then to the work plan.
Yes, I just wanted to introduce the item on the work plan. There is a report in the agenda pack. So following on from the last round of area committees, the area committee review working group met to consider how well the processes had worked with respect to funding, and they made some recommendations for this coming year. One of the recommendations was to bring forward the funding round from December to September when the bids come to the committee. The reason for that is so that if not all of the funds are allocated at that meeting, there's not then the last minute rush before the end of the financial year to make the allocations. For that reason, we need to consider the work plan at this meeting ready to consider at the September meeting. The working group also suggested that head of services be consulted to see if there are any existing projects which area committees may wish to provide some funding to accelerate. This would mean that it wouldn't require much more than minimal officer input, as it was an existing project, but it would just be to speed it up, and it would bring benefits to the area by completing it early. And the third thing that the review working group recommended was that each area consider how widely the funding scheme should be publicised. I know different area committees have different views on that, so rather than have a blanket approach, each area committee decide what they want to do about that. So the report in the pack tonight sets out a proposed work plan that's been put together with the chair, the vice chair and officers have worked on it. And if you look at page 16, you'll see that it sets out the list of projects that officers have suggested the committee may want to think about including in the work plan. I'm going to hand that to the chair to discuss the list before going on.
Okay, thank you. Members, you've seen the list under proposals 3. Are there any that you feel you want to progress?
I'll just say for a minute, my pack only went up to 14, so I actually don't know what. So I'm terribly sorry. I didn't realise there was. I would like to say at this time that I think the town clock project was absolutely fantastic. So, so congratulate people. Thank you very much indeed.
While you're talking about the town block, an interesting item came to light that now it's got its lanterns back again. When it was originally fitted with lanterns, they were gas fired, and we also had trams at the time. And after a little while, they realised that every time the tram went by, it broke the gas line.
Yes.
And that's why they actually took them down. But now they're electric fired, hopefully the traffic going by won't block the party.
Oh, Rebecca Transit.
Okay. Cameron.
Two comments on the items under 3.2. The first one on the first bullet point, the beach cams. I'm assuming we are talking live streaming cameras showing off our beaches, not CCTV cameras. I know it's become quite a thing around the world that you can go on YouTube and look at live cameras from all over the world. As much as I think that's a good idea, I think £10,000 to invest in that would be an incredible difficult sell. We've sat here this evening and talked about budget constraints and then spend £10,000 on 3 or 4 cameras that are going to live stream our beaches. What I would suggest is that if we could get some sort of sponsorship, because a lot of those cameras around the world usually have a sponsor in the corner that helps pay for the feed and everything. If you could go down that route, that's something to explore and something probably to Visit Wales look into. But I'm particularly interested in the public toilet refurbishments. Certainly, my particular patch, I'm talking about the public toilets in Queenborough Park. It's not only toilets, but it's also a shower, public access shower. We have the amount of yachts coming in and visitors coming in, and that shower and those toilets are usually in a pretty poor state. They've had small patch repairs, but you go in and they do look incredibly outdated. And I think it's about time that some investment was put into those. I'm sure everyone will come up with a toilet in their patch that they think could do with an upgrade as well. But I do think that one there, particularly in terms of tourism, is vitally important, because at the moment Queenbury Yacht Club puts us to shame because their facilities are far better.
It's the White House, it's the...
Yeah, it's really cool.
Anthony.
The White House has already agreed money to refurbish.
Of course, that's in...
Remember, it's just in the list of jobs that haven't yet been done.
Yeah.
I was going to raise 2 points. Number one, relative to what you said about market rate. Obviously, at some point, the expressions of interest will to go somewhere. I have not read it recently, but there's a consultant's report, vision on Bart's Point, which went to the Bart's Point working group. It might be useful for members to read that and see if vision is still reasonable.
It's nice to know there is one, so yes, that could come back to the relevant committee.
For £10,000. It's one of these that go on the shelf. And we could have been all aware. The other thing is, out of this whole list, I think that one thing that would make a difference to residents, every resident, increasing numbers of residents, is yes, identifiers. And indeed food banks. Because we have more and more people are being affected by the cost of very well said, down and most of it, we've not got enough food
to have the stamina. Enterprise, you know, it isn't.
I think a lot of the town and parish councils are supporting as well. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. It's linked to the public toilets and the business crime reduction. I'm just concerned about the increasing levels of detritus. People are seemingly obliged to throw out their car window along the lower road in particular. And the absolute lack of any cleansing that goes on, not just the lower road, but anywhere else. You know, you see the odd litter picker out. I see them certainly first thing in the morning. But we don't see a concerted effort to clear it up. And whilst we might have a nice toilet, we've got streets and roads that are paved with rubbish.
I think a lot of it is around the lack of verge cutting and hedge trimming and that sort of thing. I know some of the roads are getting quite narrow now from lack of hedge trimming.
We're going on about public toilets. I want to know when how ones are going to be reinstated in the village. We've got a lovely aviation place down at the prison. We've got a large war memorial here. Got a lovely church. No public toilets. Everywhere, every place on the island has got public toilets apart from us.
They have down at the prison at the aviation.
But you're not going to get people they go to the church, they have a wedding.
Yeah. No, you just mentioned that. You just mentioned it, so.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll come back on that one for Mr. Newell. The parish council were offered local toilet by the aviation memorial several years ago, but couldn't financially make it work. The current owners of that, or keepers of that, are the church, and the church do not keep it to the state of it.
Yeah, I was going to say very similar to that, but originally those toilets were the Queenville Sheppey Council and of course then Swale Council taking on the assets of and the responsibilities of the councils that were merged. And I think, yeah, they ought to be reinstated and refurbished. They're only small. And I think to expect tourists and that, you know, being old, I have to look for loos. So, you know, I think it's quite important that public facilities are actually paid for. And it does need those to be refurbished. I mean, we were talking about the Sheerness ones. Well, they pulled them down that were, you know, on the college site. So, you know, we need to provide that type of public facility, you know, and not expect people to bang on doors or go into, so they are there. It's quite a nice brick building, and I think it could be refurbished at a sensible price, particularly if local tradespeople were actually employed rather than big firms.
Okay, Polly.
Looking at public toilets, can we see some sort of commitment from Swale towards a scheme like the radar scheme? So the radar scheme is a national scheme that allows anybody to purchase a generic key that allows the toilets to be used when people need them. So for instance, I know you shut some toilets, but this was brought up by residents when the Leeds toilets were brought up. And I thought it was a part of a good idea that, for instance, people who need them, maybe with hidden disabilities or whatnot, can actually access the public convenience at the public convenience.
But that normally employs another wet area to put the lock on the radar. Right? And the two toilets across the way here, the church was given them. Then the church gave them back to its church parish council, And the last cost in East Church Parish Council had in to make the drain or the sewer was £40,000. And you can't see East Church precept players paying 40 grand to have one toilet.
These toilets were handed back to Swell Borough Council, I believe. I think that's where they've been handed back to, because I deal into with the church and stuff. And as far as they're concerned, they do not no longer take any part in it.
Church are the key holder, primary.
They were, they're not now.
Still are,
No, no.
Okay,
That's why we never get in.
we'll look at that one. Anything else anybody wants to add?
So if there's, if any of the area committee members, would like to put forward one of these bids, or if there's anything else in particular that they, the other projects that they wanted to put forward, if they could, speak to the head of service, for that area, and also let me know, and I can get to have the bid forms. And the bids would need to be submitted to me, between the 1st of July and the 1st of August. The deadline is the 1st of August. We can't accept bids after that. So moving on from that is the criteria for assessing the applications. Last year, the criteria were that bids should have a positive impact on the appearance, environment and facilities in the Sheppey area. And the chair and vice chair propose keeping those criteria, so I think they're still relevant this year. But I wondered what the committee members' views are on keeping that criteria.
Yes, I think that they should, but my recollection of the bids that we looked at don't actually match what Janet's just announced. So I'm happy to keep them, but actually adhere to the more stricter.
It depends a lot really on the bids that come forward, doesn't it?
Remain with the current criteria as well.
I disagree with what's just been said, because the officers scored all of the bids based on that criteria.
I can just explain. So because the number of bids was less than the actual funding allocated to the area committee, although some did score less, they still, that the committee did agree that all bids should receive funding. And then what was left over went towards the Sheerness promenade scheme. So if this year you're in a position where you have more bids than you actually have funding, then the scoring is more important, and then the ones that meet the criteria more closely will score more and have the opportunity for the committee to vote for those ones to go through. I mean, that did happen on one or two other committees, but certainly not Sheppey this year. And just one other thing I ought to just bring your attention to. Last year, the allocation was £56,000. This year, it's £47,000. It's been reduced to all the committees this year. So, is everybody in agreement with keeping those criteria?
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the last thing that needs to be agreed is how widely the scheme should be publicised. As I mentioned earlier, it's up to each area committee how what publicity should take place. I mean, there's three options. So there's to publicise widely, putting out press releases, social media posts, emailing local organisations, which would include the parish and town councils. Then there's limited publicity, which would be to email the parish and town councils within the area, Sheppey area, and any local organisations that you feel may have a relevant scheme that they could bid for and help achieve the area committee's ambitions. or no publicity at all. So it would be up to members to decide if they wanted to tell an organisation about the scheme. So I'll hand back to the chair.
I would propose that we publicise as widely as possible option one, without expense to the authority.
Yes, option one.
You happy with us?
Very.
Thank you.
Okay. Have we any matters referred to the area committee by service committees? No, because there aren't any service. Matters referred to services committee by the area committee. Is there anything we want to? Shall we wait and see what goes on?
I would like to make a suggestion that the property committee look at the state of Queen's Guildhall.
Do you want to demolish it or? I understand somebody tried it recently, didn't they?
Someone did drive into the back of it recently.
Okay. No answer. The date of the next meeting is Thursday, the 22nd of September, and the venue will be announced in due course.
Can I suggest that we hold it at Castle Connection with the Queen? Castle Connection.
They have internet.
Yes.
Soft seats.
Okay, thank you everybody for your attendance. I hope it's been useful to you.
Cheers, man.